Are you the quantum mechanics?
Yes, we are the Quantum Mechanics, the paranormal podcast for the believers, the doubters, and everybody in between. Welcome back, and an extra special welcome to Susan, our new Patreon this week. Thank you very much for joining us. Very good of you. Jump on board, join in, put up pictures, do what everyone else is doing, or just enjoy the extra scoop and the extra stuff that you get.
Shall I tell them what they get?
Tell them what you get.
So you get episodes early, sometimes over a week early, without ads. You get the Patreon exclusive episode, which is called the Extra Scoop. We do post little kind of updates on what we're doing, little bits of news, and yeah, as Ben said, there's a nice little community growing there. So also helps us, supports us for books, trips, equipment, all kinds of stuff. So if you've got a spare $5 a month, come and visit us and get all that stuff and help us. That'd be great. Thank you. But if not, enjoy what we do anyway.
I couldn't have put it better myself. I can never remember what it is anyway. Actually, this week I have been trying to use some of the Patreon money to buy decoration for the live stream.
Oh yeah,
it's harder than you might think. I thought we could do with a little sprinkling of nice pumpkins, but I couldn't find any good ones. I went to some charity shops yesterday. They were a bit rubbish.
Yeah, okay.
I'm going to carry on that quest though.
Yeah, we'll. There's our mission to find a pumpkin. I love that. Well, today, Ben, I'm thinking of that great Jam song, Going Underground.
That is a good Jam song.
And it is weird, the starting point for putting an episode together for this podcast. It can be weird, can't it? How you kind of get into it.
Oh, yeah. Well, sometimes it's a book that catches your eye. Sometimes it's something in the news. Yeah, the inspiration sort of comes out of the ether.
Well, this is a weird one. This ep started with me watching the music video by The Prodigy for their 1996 hit Firestarter.
Now, that's the one where they're knocking down walls, right?
Well, it's a kind of arty black and white affair, if you remember.
Yeah.
It sees the band, mainly Keith Flint, running around, the late great Keith Flint, I should add, running around an abandoned London Underground tunnel at Aldwych.
Oh, is that where they filmed it? I didn't realise.
Yeah, there's an abandoned tunnel there that you can use. I think they do have parties and stuff there, but yeah, that's where the Prodigy video was filmed. And then that got me thinking, after I watched that video, it got me thinking, I don't know if you've ever seen this film, a really excellent film, the 1997 horror movie directed by Guillermo del Toro called Mimic.
Yes, because it starts on the underground, doesn't it?
It does. It's a movie set on the New York subway, features an insect-like cryptid terrorising the underground train network and anybody that comes in contact with it.
There's another set in the London Underground called Bloodline.
Oh, no, I've not seen that.
Oh, that's older, and the plot is that a group of Victorian miners who were digging out the tunnels got trapped down there and have become a sort of inbred community of cannibals and are killing people who are roaming around the underground tunnels late at night.
Ooh, now that's spooky. Well, they would enjoy this episode. Because there is something, just like you're saying, there's something spooky, threatening, claustrophobic to travelling on the underground or the subway if you're in other countries. So I thought I'd research some scary and disturbing ghost encounters reported to have happened on our very own London Underground.
Excellent. So I guess the thing every time it goes through my mind, I'm thinking about the strange feelings you get on the tunnels, the sort of the feeling of being watched. But some things have gone further than that, have they?
There have. There's some really interesting sightings that I've got coming up. But before we delve into the spooky stuff, shall we have some of my randomly researched facts about the London Underground?
Oh, random underground facts, yes.
You know my random facts. There is no rhyme or reason to it. They're just random facts, basically.
Random facts.
So, interestingly, the first London Underground station was Baker Street. which opened on the 10th of January 1863. I'm sure there wasn't the full underground network then, but it later became Baker Street, the underground tunnel. I thought that was weird. It's like the Tulpa of Sherlock.
The
is
Tulpa's
still
coming
alive
back.
and
Yes,
well.
yes.
At least 2 stations on the network were built on burial sites. If you've ever been to Liverpool Street Station or Aldgate Station, more than 4,000 bodies would have been buried beneath your feet. In 2015, archaeologists unearthed 3,000 skeletons at Liverpool Street Station, and Aldgate is said to be built above a pit used to bury plague victims, with over 1,000 bodies buried there.
Yeah, I think I've heard it said that some of the twists and turns in the tunnels are to avoid plague pits as well.
Ah, okay. Well, there's a lot of abandoned infrastructure on the London Underground, more than I thought. There are about 50 abandoned tube stations on the network.
Are they really? Wow.
I would have never have guessed that much.
No,
would you?
no, not at all.
3 babies have been born on the London Underground. The first being named Thelma, Ursula, Beatrice, Eleanor.
Tube.
Yes, which spells tube, which I thought was quite cute.
Ooh.
This is a weird one. The American TV celebrity Jerry Springer was born at a London Underground station.
Was he really?
His mother gave birth to him while sheltering at East Finchley Station during World War II.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Kind of slightly sad, but interesting facts. In 1931, Harry Beck, the man who designed the iconic tube map showing all the lines and stations, was paid just £10.50 for his design.
Good Lord.
And if you wanted to buy a poster of it now, it'll cost you about the same as he got paid to design it. I mean, it is a design classic, isn't it? Everyone seems to agree that's the case. I love that design. This is so sad. This is probably my favourite and most moving random fact that I found. So anyone who's ever travelled on the London Underground will be familiar with the tannoy message that says, "Mind the gap," right?
Yes.
Well, Embankment Station has a different voice to the rest of the network.
Is that in honour of somebody died, I think? Is that right?
It is. In 2012, London Underground changed the voice that said "Mind the Gap" across the London Underground system when it went digital. But just before Christmas that year, they were approached by Dr. Margaret McCollum. She asked why they'd changed the voice of the man who said "Mind the Gap." When staff asked her why she wanted to know, she explained that the previous voice was her husband, Oswald Lawrence, who had passed away in 2007. Margaret explained that every day she passed through Embankment Station just to hear his voice.
Oh, so they put it back?
Yeah, they were so moved by her story, they found the original recordings, restored and digitised them, and changed the "Mind the Gap" announcement at Embankment Station back to her husband's voice, so she could still hear Oswald's deep tones as she travelled to work.
That's very sweet.
The rest of the network used the modern voice. I don't know if that's still the case now, but it certainly was for a while. I'm intrigued to almost go to Embankment and kind of hear if it's still the other guy's voice. What a lovely thing to do, though. I mean, I know there's some PR behind it, but it's really a nice gesture.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic.
Well, shall we get into some ghost stories?
Let's hear them, yes.
I'll start with probably the most famous, the ghost of Sarah Whitehead, also known as the Bank Nun or the Black Nun. And I want a special thanks to historian Sarah Murden, writing in All Things Georgian, for some great research on this. There are various versions of this stories, but Sarah's one, I think, is the most accurate. Now, the background to this story starts in 1811 with the trial and execution of Sarah's brother, Paul. He's called Peter in some, he's called Philip in others, but Paul was his name. Paul worked at Bank of England, but one day was charged with forgery. He stood trial at the Old Bailey on the 30th of October 1811. Aged just 37, he was sentenced to death. Now, Paul Whitehead was hung on the 29th of January 1812. He was supported throughout the trial, some kind of weird side facts, and accompanied to the gallows by someone called Samuel Birch, who would then later become the Mayor of London, weirdly.
That's a very odd...
It's an odd fact, yeah. Now, Paul's sister, Sarah Whitehead, struggled to accept her brother's death, and would visit Bank and the surrounding area in search of her brother, who she could not accept had passed away. So Sarah was so well known in the area that her death was reported in the London newspapers. The first account of Sarah's demise appeared in Bell's Weekly Messenger on the 12th of November 1837, but it was repeated in most of the London newspapers at the time. But this account goes as follows. I'm going to read this out. It's one of those, we've done this a few times, when you're reading news reports from that time, the English is a little bit clumsy, so try and bear with me, and I'll try and deliver it. You know what I mean, don't you?
Oh, yes, I do, yes.
It will be in the recollection of many of our readers, and particularly of the gentlemen at the bank, and of the merchants and banks connected with the Royal Exchange, that for the last 40 years, the above-named lady was in the habit of paying a daily visit in that vicinity. The circumstances that gave rise to the extraordinary perseverance of this unfortunate lady are well known, to have been reverted from the ill-fated end of her brother, who held a responsible situation in the Bank of England, and who, having committed an act of forgery, suffered the extreme penalty of the law. The effect of his untimely end produced an alienation of her mental faculties, while in addition she was reduced from a state of comparative opulence, being at the time partly dependent on her brother's income, to one of indigence. No cash, basically. Being they young, while her enthusiastic and romantic attachment to her brother, leading her to attend daily at the bank, some opulent and Christian individuals in the city compassioned her in her misfortunes and became eventual contributors to her support during the remainder of her life. So I mentioned the guy who went on to be mayor. I think he was one of the ones who financially supported her after her brother's death.
Okay, that makes sense.
She is known to strangers by the singularity of her dress, which was in the old-fashioned style of the period, about the early part of the reign of George III. She was always attired in black, while her cheeks had constantly the appearance of being rouged. As there were very peculiar and interesting circumstances connected with her sudden exit from this world, and as no information could be obtained by the parochial authorities, Mr. Payne, the city coroner, was informed of the occurrence, and a highly respected jury was yesterday empanelled before him at the King Arms Tavern, Old Kent Road. Back in that time, we've talked about that before, haven't we? These events were not happening in courts or coronary offices. They happened in pubs, which I think is fascinating. The following evidence was received. Allingham, the summoning officer, said that he had applied at the Bank of England to find out the deceased relations, but he had not succeeded. He had seen there a porter who'd been there for the last 40 years and who did not know her Christian name. Mrs. Butler, landlady of the Eagle Coffee House, stated she had known the deceased for the last 14 years. She took her meals daily and read the newspapers. She paid regularly. On Thursday, she was in the coffee room some hours. She complained of not being well and appeared so. She left about 4 o'clock to return home. Witnesses assisted her along the passage when, as she was sinking, the witness called for assistance and 2 men then supported the deceased. She was taken home where Mr. Saunders, the surgeon, saw her and pronounced life extinct. After the hearing some further evidence, the jury returned a verdict of died by the visitation of God.
Okay.
I imagine that's probably natural
causes. Yeah. So people see her now.
Yes. Well, so the background is, for over 40 years, she would visit the bank in search of her brother, who she said was not dead. Many people around that area of bank would financially help her until she passed away. Now, over the years, there's been a number of sightings of Sarah Whitehead's ghost around the area of Bank Station and many in the underground itself. And the stories are pretty similar. I'm not going to do them all. I'm just going to focus on a couple, but there are a lot. The stories are people see a woman in strange all-black antique clothing who is said to ask passers-by if they have seen her brother. Now, the reason that she's mostly seen at Bank Station has been put down to the fact that when they built the ticket office in 1900, a number of bodies were exhumed and relocated from a crypt there. So they moved the bodies in order to build the station ticket office. Now, the theory being that Sarah's body was among them. However, the historian I talked about earlier kind of thinks that's unlikely, as Sarah was a resident of Old Kent Road. So why would she be buried at Bank? You know, unless she convinced somebody, maybe this is where the mayor comes in. She wanted to be close to her brother, but there's no proof of that.
Right, okay.
But that's part of the backstory you'll read. So sightings of the ghost of Sarah Whitehead, sometimes known as the Black Nun or the Bank Nun, have been reported right up to 2001. So I think it's her clothing that people kind of describe her as the Black Nun, because she's all in black.
I was going to say, but that she's no way a nun.
No, I think it's just that kind of, it looks like a habit in terms of, maybe it's the interpretation of that dress in modern times. Possibly the most chilling account that I came across was from a station worker named Chris Archibald. Chris was working late at the station, and at 2 a.m, long after the station had closed, he noticed an old woman dressed in black on a CCTV monitor. He went to investigate and saw her standing in the corridor. She looked up at him, then cast her eyes down, turned around and walked around the next corner. He hurried after her, but when he turned the corner, she was gone. So he called his colleague who operated the CCTV cameras to check if he could see her anywhere, because they're like, there's this old woman who's just in the station. They checked over 100 cameras and there was no one to be seen.
That's good.
So yeah, he saw it on CCTV, thought, oh my God, there's somebody who's got trapped in the station, went down, saw her in the corridor, shouted out to her, she turned a corner, gone. Now, two things really interested me about this story, Ben. Firstly, not a typical sighting of a Victorian woman in a white dress. It's an Edwardian dress, black one, but it's not the typical. The second bit that really intrigued me was the fact that the apparition was asking people if they'd seen her brother, which to me not only implies that someone was interacting directly with a ghost, but also that the person or the ghost they were interacting with appeared more human than ghost-like, right?
Yeah.
I mean, albeit in strange clothing. So that sent me on a search to go, because all the reports I'd read up until that point were a bit like the station worker of the CCTV, people either above ground seeing this strange woman in a black Georgian dress just wandering about, or in the station looking strange, and often after it had closed. But I couldn't find any details of somebody actually communicating with this ghost. The only one I could find was this post on Mysterious Britain and Ireland, which was sent to them in an email. So there's no, checking of this. They received an email from someone saying they'd come across this ghost and here was their experience. So I don't know, you can make your own minds up. The email says, one evening in 1991, while enjoying a nice walk on my first visit to London, I nearly bumped into a woman. Apparently, I was distracted by the sights because I certainly didn't see her before almost walking into her. She was wearing a black dress and bonnet of a style from the early 1800s, much as I'd seen on display in London's Victoria and Albert Museum. She held a small purse in her hand. Her face was plump and decidedly English. Rude.
I was going to say.
Her expression was quite sad. Okay. Decidedly.
Because she had a big plump face.
Yeah. We stood less than an arm's reach from each other, face to face. Her eyes barely caught a glimpse of mine because she was, with the apparent despair, dropping her head as if defeated. As she did so, she asked, "Have you seen my brother?" Uncomfortably, I said, I don't know your brother, so I don't know if I've seen him. Then I looked behind her. 4 meters away stood 2 men looking at me. I thought that perhaps they were escorting this troubled woman who was out in the dark of London asking strangers questions. The two men said nothing. Then she and I walked past each other. After I walked 5 or 6 steps, I turned around to watch her, concerned about her and curious to know what she was doing, but she wasn't there. This was an open area. There were no obstacles that could have blocked my view of her. There was nothing or nowhere for her to hide behind. My view was not obstructed by people. She just wasn't there anymore. Puzzled, I continued my walk and said it out loud. Well, I guess this is creepy old London. I started to think of the two men who... I'm thinking that those two men didn't see her and they only saw me talking, which makes
they're
sense.
thinking she's the mad one, yeah.
Yeah. Perhaps she was only visible to me. That would explain why they said nothing to me. Anyway, 9 years passed. Again, I had business to do in London and I would soon go there for a second visit. So I went to a bookstore in Los Angeles to get a useful book about enjoying London. I liked to walk and wanted something compact and not heavy. From the shelves, I removed a book titled Walking Haunted London. It featured several walking tours, each tour 3 or 5 kilometres long. To give the reader a better sense of history, the author usually began each by telling of battles and interesting commentary pertinent to that area. But at the bottom of page 23, I was intrigued to see a story tour which was titled The Woman in Black. This was the story of Philip, it's actually Paul, but it's Philip in this version, and Sarah Whitehead. The author wrote that ever since she died, many people have witnessed that she appears out of nowhere with sad, downcast eyes and is heard to say one phrase, "Have you seen my brother?" My arms had goosebumps. I could have lived my entire life without discovering the story of Sarah Whitehead. In fact, after that chance meeting with Sarah, the story eluded me for another 9 years, and that book has since been out of print for many years. I contacted the Bank of England and they mailed information to me about Sarah Whitehead. I also contacted the author of the book and we chatted. During my second visit to London, I was hopeful to see her again, and why not? For some reason, I was fortunate to have had that experience, but I didn't see her again. I'll never forget Sarah's face. She looked as human, alive, and truly there as anybody. She didn't look ghostly or like an apparition in any way. I marvel at the fact that Sarah was aware of my presence. She wasn't talking to empty space. She wasn't 5 feet to the side of me, talking to nobody. She was extremely close and talking to me and only me. I wonder what would have happened if I had touched her hand and said, "Sarah, I've got some news for you. Your brother is dead. Your search is over. It's time to move on."
That is extraordinary because, yes, this is obviously an intelligent haunting, not a stone tape.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But what a coincidence to find that.
To find the book, especially out of print.
Yeah, I mean, I could imagine how chilling that would be.
I mean, a sceptical side would say it's an email that was sent into a website, so, you know, it could be creepypasta. But if it is a genuine account, I find it fascinating that... Two things that I find fascinating. One, like you said, this ghost is not stone tape because it's trying to communicate with somebody, asking a question at least. And that fact that it looks, albeit in weird clothing, looks perfectly human, not like an apparition.
Yes,
I find that
not
fascinating.
slightly see-through, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. The depth of that story as well is quite touching.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're going to come on to another more detailed story, but you know how much I love a chart countdown, right? We love a countdown.
Love a countdown.
Shall we take a look at the top 10 ghosts of the London Underground, according to David Tucker from London Walks?
Go, David.
So, can we get the music going? At number 10, Anne Naylor. The 18th century was a grim time to be in London, especially for the poor. Anne Naylor was a 13-year-old orphan who was apprenticed to hat maker Sarah Metyard and her daughter Sally. She was treated appallingly. Anne was starved, beaten and eventually murdered by Metyard before being dumped at Chick Lane. Ugh. It was here that Farrington Station was later built, Over the years, many have reportedly heard the screams of a young girl at Farringdon.
Wow. It's always the bloody apprentices.
I know.
What is it about these people completely persecuted?
Yeah, really. You know, you're getting work for free. Don't treat them
exactly.
badly.
Yeah.
And number 9 in the most haunted stories of the underground is called The Man in the Peaked Cap. So, the article says, one of the spookiest things about the London Underground is that there are hidden tunnels and passages that the public know nothing about. Disused, but still there. One such hidden tunnel can be found at South Kensington on the Piccadilly line, built to house a new section of the line but later abandoned. And it is at South Kensington that a man wearing a peaked cap is seen clinging onto the side of a steam train coming into the station to the sound of a loud whistle before disappearing into the tunnel.
Wait, so the steam train is an apparition as well?
Well, according to this, which would be incredible to see, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It says Highgate scene of the abandoned Northern Line extension project is also said to be plagued by sounds of non-existent trains.
But I wouldn't have thought that steam trains ever ran on the London Underground.
No.
I thought they were always electric for the obvious problems.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe it was the overground bit.
I was going to say, is it the sounds? But no, it does say a man wearing a peak cap is seen clinging onto the side of a steam train. That would be so weird to see. Our number 8 London Underground ghost is the worker in the white overalls.
Oh, that sounds ominous.
Now, we've mentioned this a little bit earlier. So, built on an ancient burial ground, classic horror trope there, isn't it? Liverpool Street Station is one of the most haunted of the London tube stations. Well, not according to you, it's number 8. And is also said to be plagued by a worker in white overalls. This ghostly apparition appears at the station as if on his way to work, wearing his overalls and carrying his box of tools. When Liverpool Street was being updated in 2000, the worker in white overalls was apparently captured on CCTV. Yet when underground staff went to find him, he'd vanished into thin air. So a bit like the Sarah Whitehead story. They got to start recording their CCTV, haven't they? Because there we'd have 2 visual things of ghosts if those are true.
Yeah, if they showed up.
That's true. At number 7, we have the disaster victim ghost. So this is quite a modern one, actually. I remember this event. On the 18th of December 1987, tragedy struck at King's Cross when a fire started under an escalator.
Oh, I remember this.
So I think somebody had dropped a cigarette.
That's
and
right,
under
yes.
the escalator were all kind of papers.
And the escalators were made of wood.
Yeah. So the fire spread quickly. 31 people died, with many more injured. The ghost of an inconsolable young woman reaching out for help has since been seen at King's Cross. I'd not heard that story before. I mean, I'd heard about the fire, but not the ghost story.
Imagine, in 1987, smoking on the underground.
I know. Yeah.
On a wooden escalator, and everyone was like, that'll be fine.
Yeah. And then just dropping your butt without trying to stub it out. It's just crazy.
God, I was at secondary school when that happened. That's mad.
Yeah. Well, coming in at number 6, I like this one, is Amun-Ra. The ghost of Amun-Ra is believed...
I do like an almond-Ra.
Amun-Ra, yeah, an almond-Ra. Amun-Ra is believed to be that of a cursed mummy put into the British Museum.
Oh, of course there is.
Like Aldwych Station, formerly known as Strand, British Museum Station is what's known as a ghost station, still there but disused. So that's one of the 50, British Museum Station. It was closed in 1933 when nearby Holborn Station opened. So I guess they thought we don't need the both of them. I love this next bit. Rumour has it that a secret tunnel linked British Museum Station to the Egyptian room of the museum itself. For why, I've no idea.
That's good, though.
That gave Amun-Ra, furious at being unearthed, a means to vent her rage. Those who have witnessed the screaming spectre of Amun-Ra report seeing an Egyptian princess adorned with magnificent headdress walking the platforms of Covent Garden and Holborn Station. That could just be someone, on a night out, I guess, but wow.
Well, I mean, I suppose if you're going to haunt anywhere, sure.
But for
let's
why?
go.
I tell you what, let's build a secret tunnel from the Egyptian
I know.
room to the station. For why? Okay.
For Almond Ra.
Yeah. Into the top 5 now. We have the children of World War II bombings. It was into the depths of the underground that Londoners sought refuge during World War II. Bethnal Green on the Central Line is one of the deepest of the tube stations, and it was here that people flocked when they heard the roars of the sirens in 1943 that was then accompanied by gunfire. This is really sad. In the panic to reach the safety of the air raid shelter, and as more people poured onto the narrow stairs, those at the bottom of the stairs were crushed and suffocated, including many women and children, trying to get to safety. This is the worst part. Devastatingly, the sirens were part of a practice raid, not a real raid. So this disaster could have been avoided and 173 lives could have been saved.
Good God, 173.
Some say the wails of the victims can still be heard today. That's so sad, isn't it? And the fact it was just a test raid rather than a real one.
That's awful.
At number 4, we have the girl on the train. Of all the ghost sightings on the London Underground, the one that really creeps the drivers out is the girl on the train. So this is the train drivers. As the train approaches Elephant and Castle on the Bakerloo line, drivers report seeing a young woman getting onto the train, but they never see her again. So I think this is when the train's empty. What they hear, though, are running footsteps, tapping noises and slamming doors. Now, this is interesting, I found. It is the infamous infrasound that the London Underground is known for, emitting sounds below the range of human hearing and believed to cause all manner of unpleasant effects on the human body, from disorientation to nausea, that could cause this, or is it the ghost of a girl herself? Thought that was fascinating because we did that episode on infrasound, and it is those long tunnels and stuff can produce that. But, you know, whether it is a natural phenomena produced by infrasound making you hallucinate, especially if you're on driving an empty train at night, what a weird experience to go through either way, right?
Yes. Well, you know as well, you walk down the tunnels. Well, the maintenance people walk down the tunnels by themselves at night too.
Yeah, and they'd still be suffering. I mean, it could explain why there are so many ghost reports and sightings on the London Underground. It could be connected to infrasound.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we've had people saying they've seen stuff on CCTV, but without the recorded evidence, they could be hallucinating that, couldn't they?
Yeah.
So number 3 in the list of spooky underground ghosts is William Terrace. One we've talked about before in our episode on haunted theatres, if you remember.
I do.
This is the tale of the actor William Terrace, who was stabbed to death by a disgruntled actor outside the Adelphi Theatre, which is close to Covent Garden. The renowned actor in the 19th century, I remember this from when I researched it before, Terrace had his own private entrance to the Adelphi Theatre that no one else could use. He enjoyed great success and was a frequent visitor at the Covent Garden Bakery. However, his friend and fellow actor, Richard Archer, Prince, was less successful and became an alcoholic. Terrace tried to help Prince by giving him acting parts and recommending him to the Actors Benevolence Fund. But on the 16th of December 1896, Prince slaughtered his so-called friend outside the Adelphi, stabbing him to death. When the bakery in Covent Garden was knocked down to make way for the Covent Garden Underground station, the ghost of Terrace followed. Since then, commuters and underground workers alike report seeing this most debonair of ghosts, often with an opera cape and gloves.
I think, didn't Most Haunted go there?
Oh, maybe.
I think so. That might be the famous Mary Loves Dick episode. I'm not sure.
Oh, really?
Think so. But
I've just got this vision of what's his name coming out in a cape and opera gloves now.
Derek Accord.
Yes.
That's a good one, though. That would make sense. He must be really cross. He can't get what would he get from the bakery? I suppose like a bun.
Yeah, I was thinking a scone.
Oh, yeah, that's a very actor-right thing to get, yeah.
Scones.
And not an almond ra.
Not an almond roll, no. With some edamame on the side.
Oh, nice.
And number 2 is the ghost of the Kennington Loop. Notorious for ghost sightings is the infamous Kennington Loop on the Northern Line. The Northern Line seems pretty haunted. Could tie into that infrasound thing, couldn't it? The train empties of passengers at Kennington, ready for the train to perform a loop. So I think it goes back round to start again. Devoid of passengers, the carriages are clear, yet drivers report hearing the slamming of carriage doors right throughout the train. Legend has it that a man, possibly a London Underground station worker, was electrocuted on the tracks in the 1950s. If you happen to miss your stop on the way home one evening, you could end up on the Kennington Loop. But be warned, this is one section of Underground that even drivers refuse to ride.
Yes, I think I'd heard about that. Yeah. It's a weird bit of track as well.
Yeah, and that idea of, okay, so everybody clears off the train and it just almost does its solo loop with just the driver. It must, again, that must be spooky.
That's up near, you must have travelled that way going to MTV all those years ago.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I know the Northern Line well.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm not going to tell you on this, but I will mention it on the extra scoop. I can tell you my favourite London Underground story. It's not a ghost story, but it is very funny.
Okay.
Number 1 is the one we've already covered, the Sarah Whitehead. So I'm not going to go into that again, but that is apparently the best ghost story of the London Underground. Nice. And thanks for David Tucker for putting together that great list. I thought it was good.
Yes, that was a good list.
Let's talk about one London Underground station that was just outside the top 10, Aldgate East Station.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there has been so much paranormal activity at this station that it's rumoured that staff keep a logbook of ghost sightings. I'd love to get my hand on that if it exists.
Wow.
Now, we did briefly mention it at the top of the show, but the station was built on top of an old plague pit. Though this has been questioned by historians and paranormal investigators, there doesn't seem to be conclusive proof, but given its location, it might make sense. Whether true or not, there have been a number of reported sightings of ghosts and strange apparitions at the station. Multiple reports of phantom footsteps by those working at the station or travelling late at night. Oh, that would just freak you out, wouldn't it?
Totally freak me out.
Sightings of ghosts dressed in rags. I guess that kind of has added to the rumours of plague burial ground ghosts. But perhaps the most spooky sighting is that of, it's back again, the classic ghost of a woman in white.
Always.
Now, there are various versions of this story out there, some describing the ghost as a kind-hearted ghost, some as more sinister and threatening. From the different stories that are out there, here is what I pieced together. The story seems to start with an old woman who was killed during World War II after falling onto the electric rail at Aldgate Station, and is said to now haunt that station. The most chilling encounter I found involves a track worker who was working a late shift. He slipped and fell onto the rails and was hit by 20,000 volts from the conductor rail. Which sounds like it should have meant instant death, right?
Yes.
But apparently not.
Oh, okay.
Apparently you can survive that. It's all to do with how long you're in contact with the rail for. So you can survive, and he did. Apparently one of the man's co-workers says he saw a half-transparent old woman stroking the man's head just before he fell. Now, this is where there are two different interpretations of this story. Some claim that the ghost, having been electrocuted in the past, was trying to warn the man that he was about to fall, or comfort him knowing what was about to happen. Others claim the entity was trying to push him to his death. So it kind of...
Yeah.
I think you could interpret it either way, right?
Yes.
Either way, he survived the fall and the electric shock, only suffering minor bruises.
That is incredibly lucky.
Yeah.
Does he remember the ghost? Does that come up?
No, from my reading of it, I don't think he acknowledges that it's happened.
it.
It was just
No.
a co-worker was like, can you imagine seeing that? You've got your one of your co-workers standing there. You look over and go, there's a transparent woman in a white dress stroking his hair, and then boom, he falls.
Dave, there's something on your head. It's a woman.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I did want to end with some more spooky tales of the ghosts of the London Underground, but I got into a Quora and Reddit threads about the weirdest things that people have seen on the Underground. So not paranormal. You know how you kind of you go down a different rabbit hole. So I'm going to share some of those. So these are not paranormal tales, but they are funny. This includes this one by Barry, which I loved. Barry says, Leicester Square Tube, around Christmas a few years ago, I saw one of the most surreal fights. At that tube station, as you get out of the ticket machines to exit there is a crowded hexagonal lobby which leads upstairs. So I witnessed in this lobby, along with quite a few other people, Santas versus Smurfs fighting around 7 to 8 on each side. I'm presuming they were all guys, although I did see a Smurfette wearing a long blonde wig and a white dress.
That sounds like a Dom Jolly stunt to me.
They were all a bit mouthy. They'd all had a few drinks. I think the Santas were on a pub crawl, or maybe had come from a football match, and were all in red with white beards. The Smurfs, who were coloured head to toe in blue makeup with white dungarees, most likely were going to something like the World Darts competition, where surreal dressing up in the crowd is quite normal. No one got arrested. Security guards did actually stop to watch for a couple of minutes as it was amusing.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And then everyone scarpered upstairs.
That's very good.
How funny is that?
I wish I'd seen that.
That is so funny.
That does sound like Trigger Happy, though, doesn't it?
It really does, doesn't it? Can you imagine it? You've got 8 Smurfs on one side and 8 Santas. Or that bit in Anchorman.
Oh, yeah.
A more surreal version of Anchorman. Well, let's end with this one. This story from Fuzzy Lee, which in many ways would be weirder to witness than seeing a ghost, I think. Fuzzy says, I saw an orange leave a guy's bag of shopping. It rolled along the carriage, stopped at the open doors when we pulled into the station, and then rolled back into the guy's bag again when we set off.
That's brilliant.
The fella was none the wiser, but his orange had a big adventure.
That's good, that is.
I love the fact that the guy had no idea. He's just got his bag of shopping, this orange rolls out, almost tries to get off the tube, doesn't, rolls back into the bag exactly where it started.
Maybe it was a possessed orange.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, no, it was a curious orange.
Oh, I love it. Yes. I love that. Yes. Could have been a clockwork orange because it did come back.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, that's my tour of the London Underground.
Thank you. That was very much fun. And I do find it a spooky place. I don't particularly enjoy riding it.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, like, when it's crowded, it's horrible and sweaty.
Yeah.
And when it's empty, it is a bit spooky.
Yeah.
You will find it's probably going to be on again over the Christmas period. ITV just slipped out a show maybe 15 years ago, which was called, I think it was called Ghosts of the Underground. And it's just head and shoulder interviews with train drivers and station staff and their strange stories.
Oh, that's interesting.
The first time it went out was literally in the middle of the night in about Christmas 2006.
Right.
But they tend to put it on every Christmas, so watch out for it on the ITV network.
I'll have a look at that. I think what's most intriguing to me in doing that, and the more I think about it, I'm really fascinated by that theory of the infrasound. You know, how that could be connected to this.
Yes. Oh, yes. I think that probably plays a lot in it, and of course the Rock in London is chalk.
Yeah.
There's a lot of water under London. That chalk is full of water.
Yeah.
So it's quite possible that there is, I say that like I'm about to go on and announce that's how I know scientifically it could happen. But I'm just saying, like, it's
you're going to get the clipboard out.
Yeah, I'll get the clipboard out. But it's very possible that is perhaps what's causing some of this.
Yeah, fascinating. It may also be why, apart from those factors that you've mentioned, it being crowded or being spookily empty, if it is true, there is that ultra infrasound angle to it. It could explain why you do feel a little bit weird when you're on the tube.
Yeah, totally.
Well, I thought that was interesting. So that was London Underground. I think at some point I might revisit other underground networks again, just to kind of see if there is this connection with the infrasound and the types of stories that, could be hallucinatory rather than real ghosts. But
I've never heard any. There's an underground system in Glasgow, isn't there?
what was there? I don't know.
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
There's got to be some New York ones that we can delve into, and
definitely.
others. So Metro in Paris. So we'll come back to that. But I there is something incredibly spooky. It makes me want to go on some of those walking tours as well.
Yes, that's a good idea. Yeah, and wouldn't it be good to go on one of those and then actually see something?
Oh yeah. And talking about seeing spooky things, we should mention, because we haven't got long to go now when this goes out. Please go to our YouTube channel at The Quantum Mechanics, like, subscribe, hit the bell, so you're ready in time for when we go live on the evening of Halloween. We've got some special guests coming up. Can we announce them? We're not 100% sure, though, are we?
Let's do it next time.
Next time we'll announce. We've got some lovely special guests coming. We've got some great stories. We've got a theme for the evening. We will be live on YouTube probably from about 10 p.m. We're not 100% sure, which is why, if you can, go to YouTube now, hit the subscribe and notification bell, and it will let you know when we go live on Halloween night. Very exciting.
Yes, absolutely. I've been trying to go on a diet before we do it. I'm rubbish at diets.
You're going to be wearing a black dress.
I'm going to be wearing, like when Homer Simpson decides he's just going to eat butter.
Right.
Yeah, it was like that, yes.
Right,
yeah.
Okay. I'm sure people will love us just the way we are.
Maybe, but black it will be.
All right. Well, look, we'll see you next week. We got another episode, I think, before the Halloween one.
We do, yes.
Yes. So we'll see you next week with more quantum mechanics. Oh, do you know what you're doing? You don't want to trail it, or you're going to leave it as a mystery?
Let me just put it this way. It's a spooky one, but imagine if you went to hospital and the person operating on you was actually being possessed.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
God.
what I've got coming up.
Oh, possessed. Oh, no. Okay.
A possessed surgeon, yes.
Wow, okay. Well, that's definitely worth coming back for. We'll see you next time on The Quantum Mechanics.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Are you the quantum mechanics?